everybody we're gonna get started. So I want to start by asking, what does water do for you? Does anybody know? Just like name, what do you think water does for the body? Awesome. Anyone else?
Body.
Yep.
2/3 by weight, 99% molecularly.
So babies being born are 90% water, coming from water. So I'll just go through a list of things because a lot of you know that it's important, but you might not know exactly what it's for. So it forms all of your saliva. You need it for every aspect of digestion. It keeps your mucosal membranes moist. It allows for every cell in your entire body to grow, reproduce, and survive. It flushes bodily waste from the body. It lubricates all of your joints. It is the major component of almost every single organ in your entire body. It's needed for the brain to manufacture hormones and neurotransmitters. It regulates all of your body temperature. It's a shock absorber for the brain and the spinal cord. It converts food to compounds needed for survival and digestion, and it helps deliver oxygen all over the body. So it is really, in our opinion, water is the most vital and important element to our body and to our health. And so a lot of people don't really equate brain health with water. But I would love to ask you, does anybody in here today know anybody or you yourself suffer from any sort of mental challenges, being energy, anxiety, depression, bipolar, all of these things? Does anybody know anybody? Does anybody know anybody who has brain cancer? Does anybody know anybody maybe had some mental challenges during the last 3 years? Okay, so 80% of our brain is made of water. So it's really important for our brain. And brain cells require delicate balance between water and various elements to reproduce, to reduce brain cell, so to make our brains efficient. And so dehydration is the #1 cause of memory loss and energy loss, in my opinion. And once you hit the age of 35, 40, your thirst, your quench for thirst, starts to dissipate. So it's something you have to actually program your body to do. And I'm not 40 yet, but I still program my body to drink the proper amount of ounces every single day so that I am operating at optimal efficiency. And I breastfed for pretty much 6 years straight. I had 2 babies back to back. Like, I needed that nourishment. I needed that voltage for my body. And so a lot of people in this country and other more Western cultures have attention challenges, right? They struggle to focus, struggle to finish tasks, struggle to stay disciplined, right? And so there's a bunch of studies, but this specific study, this is referencing, is an Eastern London study that shows that there are different schools in London that test the kids with more hydration. And so my kid is in public school here, and they drink, I send him to school with his own water bottle, but all they have for these kids is tap water in the school. And, all of their food in the cafeteria is made with tap water, and it's not pushed at all. There's no hydration at all pushed there. Whereas like my daughter, who goes to a more alternative school down the road here in Barnardsville, right now they have Berkeys all over the place. They're constantly, the kids have to come with full water bottles and they must finish them by lunchtime. They're really pushing hydration all day long. And there is a difference. There's a total difference in the energy levels, the attention levels. So I personally was put on antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds at 12. I had allergic reaction, I don't want to call it, but to a pharmaceutical drug that they put me on for acne. So no diet changes, no hydration, nothing, no doctors asked, do you love yourself? Do you do anything for yourself? It was just, here's some medication. I grew up with parents who, I love my parents to death. They're amazing, but they just went to the doctor. So I immediately went on medication. I had to go on birth control, even though I wasn't, sexually active. They made me go on it because the babies being born on that drug were deformed. And so it was so horrible to the human body that that's what it was doing to reproduction. And so the number one side effect of that drug is suicide. So they had thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of teenagers, young teenagers, my age, barely hit puberty, being put on this drug, and the side effect was depression. And so that made me go on a ton of antidepressants. And then that was a whole decade of basically losing my adolescence to numb. I was completely numb. And so why this is so important to me, why I will literally die talking about this, is because this is the one thing that I have tried, because I've tried thousands of things. I've been a yoga teacher, I'm a nutritionist, I've tried tons of diet changes, I'm very disciplined in whatever I try for years and years and years. And on my second pregnancy, I found this water that we're going to be talking about today, and it literally changed my entire life trajectory. So we want to talk a lot about filtration today, because we know with what's going on in the current United States,
we got Texas, Ohio, Carolinas, Michigan. Didn't know about Tennessee. Wonderful.
So we've got pretty much tons of toxic chemicals dumping into major waterways that feed over 30 million Americans. And this is something I've been talking about for 6 years, and nothing that's being dumped into the water is new. It's new to a lot of people because people have been asleep. Maybe you have. It's okay. I was once too. But today we're going to really touch base on a lot of these things and why we go with the products that we go with. It literally was trial and error for all of us. I mean, Alex went through a ton of different things. Justin, when I met him, was hardwiring, structuring, crystallizing his water through all his own engineered creation. And so that's Justin right there. And so I've met amazing people through this community of just sharing this gift of water. And so I think for most people, water is the missing link. People put everything else first. They try all the other things. They try diet, they try herbs, they try all these different doctors, but no one really talks about hydration. Even fitness professionals aren't talking about it. We go to gyms all over this town and they're like, yeah, we just bottle water, all this stuff right here. That's what we give to our people. And we'll show you that stuff is not actually hydrating. It's opposite. It's actually stealing voltage from your body, and people are paying for it. And now we know, I mean, again, there's a lot of tests, whether they're who's funding them or not. The tests that are showing that there's microplastics in the bottled water actually aren't done by the bottled water companies, because why would they shoot themselves in the foot? But they're finding that there's about a credit card's worth of plastic in people's bodies who are just consuming out of plastic. So plastic isn't the answer. So if the public water systems are contaminated and plastic's not the answer, what is the answer? We're going to go over that today. Do you want to start with filtration?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I'll go with the lack of awareness around water. Is when I started making a couple bigger videos when all this happened, and a couple really large fitness influencers who have made documentaries reached out, and they're like, I should probably start thinking about water. And I was like, are you joking? I just assumed that if you're in the fitness game at a large scale, making bigger, faster, stronger, that you knew about water, but that's not always the case. So it's probably the least spoken about, but maybe the fastest growing trend. I mean, now there's a lot of talk about water, thankfully, but yep. We can say that for industrial farming too. It doesn't take long. Yeah, we can start with filtration.
So we've been through all the filters. So RO, Berkey, Brita, what else? Cheap Amazon, even $100, $300, $400 filters off of Amazon that say all of these different things. I've purchased them. I've used them. My sister's bought 2 now whole home filtration systems that are around $5,000 to $7,000. We've tested before and after. There's actually zero change from spending this kind of money. And we're going to get into why that is right now. So there's multiple different certifications. And Alex he's good with the numbers.
Off the top of my head. So for NSF is the certifying agency, it's an international certifying agency that does more than just water, but it's kind of the gold standard in independent third party, kind of like Project Non-GMO for food, where as trustable as you can be. So NSF has 3 big ones that most people test to. That's 42, which is what most filters will hit, and that's your odors, taste, chlorine reduction, and sediment. So that's the big sweeping ones that most people notice if they go from just non-filtered water to something. Those go away. And a lot of filtration companies will put tested in compliance with NSF that doesn't mean much, right? So they're getting rid of a little chlorine from chlorinated water and putting it through one step. If you stop there, you're not getting any of the industrial byproducts that are now in streams and everywhere. 53 is the one that most people want to look for, which is all of the ones that will affect health. Laundry list of ones that I can't pronounce, like halioacidic acids, PFOAs, PFAAs, any byproduct of like Teflons interacting with organic chemicals in the water, the things you really don't want, pharmaceuticals, all of those. And then the gold standard is 401, which is the new and emerging contaminants, and that's what happens whenever you get like vinyl chlorides mixing with things, or DEET, or pesticides, any of those tiny ionic compounds that didn't exist 40 years ago, and that's why it's new, incidental, and emerging. Very few companies pay for that one. So if you see a company that does NSF 401 certification, that's a rigorous testing, and there's not a lot of cheating on that one because you have to renew those every year. So that's, if a filtration company is having that, you're more protected than you would be otherwise.
I have a question. Does anybody in the room purchase organic or farmers market food? Anybody? About 100% of you. So you find the value in spending more money on something that's not conventionally grown with pesticides and GMOs, correct? Okay, so this is what we're talking about when we're talking about all of these different certifications. Those farmers spend a lot of money and time. We've got 2 major farmers in the room, know this personally. Certifying their products are actually what they say they are, right? So that when you go to the grocery store, you go to the farmer's market, you feel safe knowing that this is not sprayed with a ton of chemicals. These certifications are the same exact thing for water. They're companies going above and beyond. They're companies that are cutting off their bottom line, which all of these farmers are cutting off their bottom line to certify this safe for you guys to eat, right? So this is something that really needs to be talked about because there's 19,000 filter companies in this country. And there's one filter company that certifies NSF for all 3 of those standards that Alex just mentioned. And that's something that we're going to go over today. And that's something that we've done. I've been a decade of researching, trying to find this company. And surprisingly, it's been around for 53 years, and they are the creators of condensed carbon block technology. And they're the ones that are actually lobbying the FDA and the FCC to change some of these regulations, because they can't legally say that our products remove fluoride because of the regulations. The regulations are only allowing RO devices to legally certify as a removal of fluoride when we actually do remove 2 out of 3 isotopes of fluoride, but we can't certify that way because of these regulations. And if you understand the reason RO came into the picture was really agriculture, and it's never actually been intended for human consumption long term. We need minerals. RO strips everything, and then people put synthetic minerals back in. We don't want to do that. We want to take what's from the earth, right? We live in the Blue Mountains. It is beautiful here. The water has so much rich minerals. So we're going to teach you a little bit more about this filter. It's a 1 stage. There's not 3 different stages. It's 1 stage. It comes in a stainless steel cylinder about this big. That's the one. There's multiple different filters this company sells, but this is the one that you're gonna get the longest filter life. This is certified for 1,200 gallons, which for a family of 4 is around a year. Now you're not gonna run this is like great for wells, great for springs, great for tap, like so many of the different water sources can be run through this, and it hooks right up to your sink. So there's no more waiting for the Berkey or getting mad at your husband for not filling the Berkey, because how many people have had a Berkey or a Brita and you wake up and you're like, oh, there's only this much left. Do I make my tea with it or do I drink it? And you just have to decide. And most people just stay dehydrated because they don't have filtered water, right? And so this is a continuous flow, and there's multiple different configurations. It's the easiest thing. I literally travel with it all over the world. So I throw it in my suitcase. I hook it up in Mexico. I hook it up when there's no running water and no electricity too. So we figured out a way to do all of these things.
She mentioned stages. Stages like RO, like people are used to thinking with like cylinder, cylinder, cylinder. This has multiple sort of filtration mechanisms built into the single block. So there's a mechanical filtration, there's a physioabsorption, and then an ionic. So there's the same principles that are being used because all carbon blocks are sort of the same. The thing that makes this interesting is it's a heated compacted carbon opposed to just activated carbon. So the only thing that makes sense to my brain is if I think about making a sword, you just constantly hammer and fold layers over. So that's what the heated compacted does. There's a ridiculous amount of surface area to the point where they don't manufacture these in mass because if they sit, they will collect things automatically because they attract so quickly. So they make them, I mean, constantly because they're a big company, but they don't have warehouses full shipping them. Like it's a continuous production.
It's a complete, this company is a U.S. company based out of Vegas. They make everything in the United States. So does anybody in the room take a supplement, do superfoods, make smoothies, do tea? Does anybody transport herbs in their body at any point?
Leading question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you think those herbs get into your cells? Do you take them with water? Most of you probably take them with water. So there's a lot of people in this country spending a lot of money for the top grade superfoods, herbs, all sorts of supplements, right? And they're taking it with tap water. They're taking it with regular well water. Well, those things don't actually transport the nutrients of what you're trying to put into your body, into your cells efficiently, in my opinion, and what we've seen in our research, because the clustering of these, of well water, for example, because I'm on well, it's so dense and it's so heavy. So when I drink well water, I can only drink about this much and it's already sitting in my stomach and it's heavy and I can't go work out. I don't feel energized, right? But when I drink that same exact well water, gone through the multi-pure, gone through this machine, I actually have rapid absorption. It's not sitting in my stomach. It's not sloshing around. I can go perform. And, my partner is working out, we drink about half a gallon before we even get the kids off to school. It's we flush our body immediately. He does definitely still drink coffee. Does anybody in the room drink coffee? Okay, so how much water do you think 1 cup of coffee dehydrates you? So like, let's say there's a 10 to a 12 ounce cup of coffee. How much water do you think you need to replace to get that? Because coffee is a dehydrator, right?
I was going to say 3.
So this study that I based this whole brain health, and if you guys want my brain health presentation, I did probably about 3 years of research with multiple different doctors, but she specifically has an institute where she trains on this and teaches lots of people. So in her studies, it takes 9 cups of water to take your body back to neutral from 1 10-ounce cup of coffee.
With minerals.
Yes.
Right.
And so it's double that if you have 1 soda. Even a soda water. So even just this, which is Mountain Valley Seltzer, right? Yeah, sparkling water. Same thing. It's oxidating your body that much that you need that you need that neutralization from hydration. So a lot of these things we just don't think about. Coffee's on every corner. Alcohol's on every corner, right? You can pretty much get coffee and alcohol everywhere in this country. There's no place you can go, the ghettos to the country, and there's still coffee and alcohol everywhere. And both of those things are the most dehydrating things to your body. I gave up coffee about 14 years ago, and alcohol, I once a year at this point, and I don't crave it at all. I have no sensation to drink anymore. For a while it was just social. I just wanted to have something in my hand to be social, and now I bring my fancy ass bottle and I'm like, you want some water? Because I'm gonna feel good tomorrow, and I know all you aren't. So I just know that my health is imperative to my well-being and my brain. Health is it's the most important thing. I spent a decade coming off of antidepressants. So yeah, it took me a whole entire decade to purge my body of those drugs, of them. I don't even know at this point. I think I was on 9 different drugs at 20 years old. And I was an athlete. I was a straight A student. I graduated summa cum laude. Like, I didn't have any reason to be. I had great parents. I had a great life, and I did not have any reason to be clinically depressed other than the fact that drugs, pharmaceuticals had totally changed, my mental capacity. So dehydration is something that happens quite rapidly. So your body can be 1 to 2% dehydrated, and you're already going to start to have memory loss. So it doesn't take a lot, right? And so that's why I say you have to program your body to drink water, because even at 33, I don't naturally I now do because I have this water, but I don't, even sometimes I'm like, oh, if I get anxious or I'm stressed out about my kids, I'm like, shit, I need to drink more water. It's not I'm going for alcohol. It's not I'm going for coffee, or even the late afternoon when I'm feeling like, oh, I'm so tired. I'm like, okay, bedtime's in 2 hours. I can make it, right? I just go for the water. And sometimes I add minerals. Sometimes I add, tea. I do teas like nettle or oat straw for, bringing back more minerals during a menstrual cycle or something like that. There's so many different ways that you can transport minerals to your body using this water. So we'll get into testing unless somebody has any questions about what we've gone over already.
Just curious as to whether you guys have I feel like I get a lot of conflicting information about how much water you're supposed to take in. Body weight is what I say most to gauge by. You guys have anything to say about that?
Electrolytes.
Yeah.
This is the confirmed part. Yeah. I would say depends on your carbohydrate intake. Because if you're a keto, you need way more because you're purging carbohydrates, and therefore glycogen stores water with it, 3 grams per gram of glycogen. So there's dietary variables, there's electrolyte variables, all things on average.
Sleep.
If you can get what he said, that's wonderful. If you can do half that and make sure you get electrolytes, that's also wonderful. You don't want to be constantly urinating. Right? So you'll reach that point. I can get away with, because I do a lot of electrolytes, probably half a gallon a day, but somewhere between half a gallon to a gallon for most people probably. Yeah, body weight in ounces.
We definitely push a gallon in our community because optimization, right? Like when I drink a gallon, I am so optimized. My mental acuity, my memory, my energy. I mean, my kids I don't sleep, and I haven't slept for 7 years. But I still work until midnight on my business and run multiple businesses. My partner works full time. We cook out all meals from scratch. And with my first son, I was so depleted. I literally had to nap like multiple times a day. I couldn't even, like I barely could work. So I changed quite a bit in just a 5 or 6 year period. But this is straight from her website. And I'll send you all of this information if you want, but reducing water in the body by as little as 5% can result in as much as a 20 to 30% drop in physical and mental performance. 10% reduction will make you sick, and 20% will die. You're going to die. And so there's a woman in this town. She's an acupuncturist. Her name's Sarah Lakey Fields. I'm not sure if anybody has gone to her. She owns Flower Mountain Acupuncture, and she did her entire thesis on dehydration. And so and this was 15 years ago, her thesis was basically a consensus of 99% of the patients she found in old folks' homes were dying of dehydration. So they weren't dying of the disease, right? They were dying of dehydration that just perpetuated the inflammation in the body. Because if you have inflammation in the body, you have a sore back, you have a headache, and you're dehydrated, that's just going to continue to perpetuate. It's like a domino effect, right? And so
it's not necessarily just water as we think of it as well, H2O. It's more hydrogen. Yep. We can go way down that rabbit hole, but hydrogen is your anti-inflammatory and used to trigger all of your built-in anti-inflammatory processes, and also directly neutralizes free radicals. So it's less, you also need the water and structured water. Your body will make H3O2, but it also splits the hydrogen off for use for everything else. So all the water doesn't stay as water.
So we're going to get into like that hydrogen aspect, because that's really, filtration is really great, right? You're going to get clean water. When you use this filter, we know like you're going to reduce all of those different contaminants. And I've changed my filter. It's definitely working. But the hydrogen aspect is the part that I didn't actually know much about until about 6 years ago when I founded this technology. So I'm just going to start testing some of these waters. So does anybody know anybody in this town who gets like Blue Moon water delivery service? Like it's a 5-gallon water delivery. They call it Pure Mountain Spring Water. Elemental, precious, and increasingly rare.
I like it. The other thing about filtration, if you go to look, and this is where I don't like telling people this because it's one of those eyes glaze over things, but now that we've gotten a lot of attention and a lot of people asking questions from the vinyl chloride and all the explosions, if you're looking for filtrations online, obviously this is our choice, but there's a bunch of other ones, and there's some good ones. Don't ever accept reductions they put on their website. Like there's one company I just had to check. They're a good company. I think it was Natural Life. But if they're just like 99.9% reduction, this on their website, disregard. So either go to a data sheet, which you can ask them for. That's a third-party test.
You shouldn't have to ask.
I know.
It should be on their
they
website.
Didn't. Right. So better if they give you access to it. But any company can just plaster numbers on their website. So ask them for a third-party test, which they will probably have, and make sure it's by not the lab that did the Berkey test, because Berkey's in a class action because the lab conflicted with they might have sent them their best filter. But NSF is better, which is why we go to that, and then third-party testing that complies with NSF standards is also good. But it's expensive to certify under NSF, which is why only companies that are very sure of their product do it, because it's extremely rigorous, and it's like an organic or a non-GMO. Like it's a yearly thing, and you're constantly taking the chance that your product will fail. So it's definitely you're sure of your product thing.
So has anybody heard of, oh, go ahead.
A local spring that I got water from this morning. I can also add to the.
Yeah, would love to test it.
Different per hauler
Yeah.
around here. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So
Well, it's a specific holler by the.
we know it. We probably know which one you went to because you, yeah. Okay. So does anyone know what ORP stands for? It stands for oxidation reduction potential. So this little meter here is going to tell us, I can pass this around, but like anything plus on the ORP scale is going to be stealing energy from you. So think about your body, you know, if you have an unstable cell in your body, it needs a hydrogen. It needs electrons to pair to make it stable. When you drink or consume or eat foods that are acidic, you're actually stealing more of those electrons. So you're not actually adding voltage, you're stealing it. So oxidation, reduction potential, anything positive on here is going to show you that it's stealing voltage from you. So, you know, soda, Gatorade, and tap water fall around 400, plus 400. And like beer is around 500, you know, like battery acids, 600. So, you know, we're talking high levels. So
And we calibrate with,
yeah, this has been just calibrated.
this is 2.5 hypochlorous acid, which comes out of this. So that's a HOCl, so it's free chlorine. So it's a very potent oxidizer, and we actually use it for, it's what your white blood cells produce naturally to fight infection. So it's a good calibration because we know what it is on the ORP scale and we can make it. But this is positive 1100. That's the power of chlorine, right? So hyperoxidizing.
Okay.
That's why it's cleaning.
So the Blue Moon is 350. So it's almost as acidic as soda.
You want
And
to
again, people are,
make
yeah.
a jump? And we bring it because ORP moves pretty slowly if things are around the same. So this will jump up and then
It's also
sensitize it
cleaning it.
and jump down, and it also cleans it.
So Fiji, people spend about $4 per 11-ounce bottle.
Still going up.
Yeah.
It's coming down. Still remember our last test.
Fiji's around 430.
And as a metric, all the things you know that help you, vitamin C, berries, all of the antioxidant things. So positive is oxidizing. So the opposite, people don't remember the word reducing usually from high school biology. It's the opposite of oxidizing. Donating electrons is reduction. People know antioxidizing or anti-inflammatory. So it's vitamin C, that's fish oil, that's berries, all the things that are good for you are negative. This is measured in millivolts. So this is an electrical measure.
So Deer Park, I used to drink this, so I'm just like, oh. 630
Yeah.
plus. So like
I know some water sommeliers that love Deer Park.
more acidic than beer, right? So like people are buying this thinking they're, I mean, when you go on an airplane, it's Deer Park everywhere, right?
Beer doesn't come in plastic.
Right. Good point.
So you're recommending beer?
I would drink beer over there.
I would too, honestly, and I don't drink.
Yeah.
When I went to Mexico without my machine for the first time, I was so dehydrated. It was the first and last time I ever left my house without bringing this technology, because at the time my partner thought I was crazy bringing this on a carry-on and literally finding the technology, you know, making sure I had all the adapters. I know, but I was drinking 2 gallons of bottled water a day, and I was so dehydrated. I couldn't sleep. My digestion was off. Aquafina is about 585.
Thanks. And you don't notice how dehydrated you are, like switching your food from highly processed conventional food to organic. You don't know where you are until you go to the other end of it. Bill and I talk about regulating your sympathetic and parasympathetic, your nervous system like this. You don't know how stressed you are until you actually find your baseline. So you don't feel how dehydrated you are until you know what hydrated feels like, which is
Exactly.
a
Most
very
people.
weird feeling when
Yeah.
you're like, I've been dehydrated this entire time. So the thing that they always throw at personal trainers, so I used to train people in gym, is 17% immediately, like your maximum capability, down at least 17%, just from lack of water, not anything to do with pushing or.
Dasani's 675.
I've done that one before.
How long would you say it, and of course it's going to be relative depending on the type of water you're drinking, how long would it take to get to baseline? So you, like, someone who's never felt they've been fully hydrated doesn't know what it feels like.
You're going to detox first,
Rapidly.
so you won't feel great like you would with food. Yeah, rapidly.
Like all levels, emotional, physical, mental. It's a pretty.
I didn't think an emotional detox was a thing until I had it happen to me when I switched over, and I was like, oh, okay. Everyone's not full of crap.
Many
Gotcha.
many men I work with don't necessarily think that that's going to happen to them. They're like, "What's happening to me?" And I'm like, "It's completely normal. Just keep drinking the water."
Yeah.
Because again, your body's trying to come back to baseline, and like you said, and it just depends on everybody. Like for me, I was drinking 2 gallons a day of spring water when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I was still dehydrated. So once I started drinking this and got through I had about a week's worth of detox symptoms. I had, the most mental and energy that I've had in and being pregnant. And so Mountain Valley is
A week-ish.
Yeah, a weekish.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So Mountain Valley is probably one of the best, and it's
That's higher than
450.
it was. Yeah.
And then we're gonna test the well.
I used to drink liters of Gerolsteiner. It's a German bubbly spring water.
And I'm just drinking that without. I was using a Brita for a while, and then my Brita pitcher broke. And when I first moved in, it smelled really bad.
Well, it's tricky. Yeah.
They shocked it before I moved in because it had bacteria in it.
Yep.
People didn't really use it for about a year and a half. And I thought it was always going to smell like that, but then I think it just needs to clear out the lines and just run a bunch. I don't think I've gotten used to the smell or anything now. Do you think it smells like sulfur? Is it tar water?
I haven't noticed in my living. There's a pipe that we have 2 different properties, or structures on the property, and there's a huge line that comes up to where I'm at. And so I think some things have settled
Yeah.
in
I
there as
wouldn't be
well.
surprised.
So the well is 535.
It's dropping a little bit. You might get down to 500.
Next, we're gonna do a Brita with I can't say that name. The Frau. What she sets it in.
Fortoski?
Oh, one's Brita and one's Brita plus earthenware.
Oh, gotcha. So we're going down at least.
And I just dropped some basic pH drops. Does anyone know what pH stands for? Potential hydrogen. So here's a pH scale. So anything like red, orange, yellow is the acidity. Neutral is the green, and then anything above green is more alkaline.
Yeah. Put some in that.
And so the Brita with what pitcher you set it in is about 650 plus.
I'm going down. The tricky part about hydrogen or pH readings, because marketing or bottled water companies aren't stupid. So there's 8.8 alkaline is now 15. If you go to Earth Fare or Whole Foods or anything, you're going to find 15 different high pH bottled waters in plastic, it's not hard to jack pH up. You can just dump synthetic minerals in it. So the question is, how much actual hydrogen does it have in it? Because there's a difference between potential of hydrogen and hydrogen. So still avoid plastic, which is what we always harp on, because microplastics, and that's not breaking down anytime soon. So just for environmental sake, if you have to do bottled water, we always do glass. So this isn't the worst option. Gerolsteiner, if you can't bring your own water with you.
So your Brita is actually a little bit less than when you put it through the other thing. It's about 514, and then we're gonna test the spring water. Yeah, the power.
It's going up. I was sure. Oh, okay, I had a guess at what it was going to be. I was nowhere close. So chemical pH manipulation, if you just blow oxygen into it, drops the pH because you're oxidizing it. So difference between electrically changing via electrolysis which is what this does, mimics lightning strikes, or think of a glacier melting, which is what Ashley likes to use, that mineral process of tumbling, which is dissociating water and splitting water molecules apart. That's a more permanent change. So if you can blow into an electrolyzed 9.5 glass and it won't oxidize, this we can manipulate the pH with a straw.
Okay, so the the spring water is 485.
I thought it was gonna be way lower.
So I'm just going to show you what happens when we just add a little tiny bit of our ionized water to these glasses.
Could you exactly, because the other ones were much higher. They were from 400 to 600.
So it's better. Okay.
Lower the number.
Yep.
You thought it was going to be.
I thought it was going to be 200
Got
because we spoke about it maybe a month ago.
So you see that none of them are, I mean, this is a little bit alkaline, but let's see if we just add a little bit of this water. I mean, just a little bit changes the alkalinity so much. So, I mean, we've actually tried this with soda.
Doesn't happen.
And like we have those big 2.5 gallon containers. We need a 5 gallon container, and it's still never.
So remember that pH is a logarithmic scale. It's not a linear scale, so every number change is 10x. So if you go from like 2.5, which is where soda is, to even neutral, that's 100,000 or 1,000,000. Right, so it takes a lot.
And that's 1,000,000 hydroxyl ions added to the body. So per liter of water.
That was 420. We'll say 425 for that one. Yeah. No, 425. I mean, that's off memory. It was 400 something.
Oh,
Yeah, it was right over 400. I would like to test it closer to the source.
But you just got that today, so.
Yeah.
so when we're looking at the filtration system that you're using, when you're changing, because you could change the pH.
Filtration, ionization. So are we talking about this? This changes pH. This won't. Filtration doesn't touch pH. It keeps the minerals, which is the other thing that's cool about this tech.
So it keeps mineralization.
Correct.
It doesn't change the ionization. But
Correct.
Ashley is
That's ionization. We tested pH and ORP. So we mixed them a little bit. pH is obviously just that one scale, potential of hydrogen. ORP is what we like using to test what people usually care about. So you spend a lot of money if you need to test microbial contamination or just what NSF does, what contaminants are in the water. For our purposes, most people, is it helping you or hurting you? So ORP is the quick way. Is it stealing electrons or donating?
So I took filtered water that we ran through the multi-pure and then the Kangen machine here. And we poured it off probably, an hour and a half ago. And if you guys can see this reading, it's negative 650. So none of those waters that I tested even came close to 200. This dropped to negative 650. So that's what Alex is talking about here. He's talking about for every point on the pH scale, and for that rapid of a drop, we're going from plus 450 to negative 650. That's thousands and thousands more hydroxyl ions per liter. So if you're drinking 1 liter a day, which like we said is not necessarily enough, you're still getting much more hydrogen than you would get through any of these other options.
So
right?
that happens, the thing that does that in this is molecular hydrogen, which is H2. And you get that, I'll be brief on this, hydrogen ions, H+, the concentration of that is acid. The opposite of that, OH, would be basic. So when this machine makes something alkaline, which is what all the other companies market, it's not the fact that it's alkaline necessarily that gives you that power. It's that it actually consumes the H+ ions to raise the pH, and it forms H2. And molecular hydrogen is the most potent antioxidant we know of. So that immediately drops the ORP because it is now hyper reducing, meaning it is donating all of those electrons. You're giving yourself energy back, literally. Like electrons are just flooding back into you.
All day long. Like most people think antioxidants, they drink green tea or take vitamin C or blueberries, right? You think antioxidants with berries. I think it's the equivalent of 5 barrels of blueberries for one little 32-ounce glass of
Those
water.
are all good things. They're just around like negative 200. So again, if you jump down a couple hundred on the voltage, then
And you just can't eat that amount of antioxidants in a day. Like think about how expensive it would be to try to eat that amount of antioxidants in just blueberries every day, right? We don't even, some blueberries grow around here, but really few farms even offer that, right? So if you're trying to get close to the source, you're trying to get, what we love about this technology is you can really take any source water, whether it's spring, whether it's tap, city tap, or well, run it through this multi-pure and then these Enagic devices and get these results. And like I said, I fly around the world with this. So I hook it up in Mexico, I've hooked it up in Panama, California, Colorado, everywhere I go, I hook it up because you doesn't matter where that source is, I'm still getting that voltage. And that's what I talk about when I talk about brain health, when I talk about like when we went into the science and the chemistry of hydrogen, I mean, he can have like a much further in-depth conversation, which we've had with the local scientist on this subject, but it's like imperative for almost all functions in the body. And so, it's depleted in the soil, right? Like it's depleted in the water. As you can see, none of these waters even came close to neutral. Like a spring coming straight from the earth. And I am not here to give you bad information. Like there's a lot of people who think I'm just trying to profit off of this, right? I found this because I was suffering. And I don't necessarily love the fact that my children who are running around right now can't go to a spring and get fresh hydrogen water, right? Like there was a time, and there are springs because we
know 5 springs.
Yeah, 5 springs in the world.
This is mimicked off of 5 springs, and they were like, "Why is this spring water healing?" Because they built holy sites around them because people would pilgrimage and flock to them, and they're like, "Okay, what's in the water?" And they're all ridiculously high in molecular hydrogen because it is a naturally occurring compound, but very few places have that, and the question then becomes, are they still uncontaminated? Because they're right. So it's what else is in the water? Hydrogen is imperative. And the thing most people ask, and I was like, okay, this doesn't make sense. Where do you get hydrogen? Can't take it out of the air, can't absorb it. Your microbiome does it off of food. It's supposed to. So all food is hydrocarbons, right? Hydrogen, oxygen, carbon. The last step of the digestion process is trillions of bacteria splitting hydrogen off your food, and that's where you're supposed to be getting hydrogen from, except everyone's microbiome is under salt all the time, and maybe not the highest quality food and soil. So we're not necessarily functioning, if this was 100 years ago, it would be a slightly different story, but it's not. So need all hope we can get.
We just need, again, I believe in my own health, and this has changed rapidly because pre-2020, I didn't necessarily think I needed to detox every day. It was something I did, seasonally, right? But this is something we are needing to detox daily. I mean, really, it's imperative to our bodies. We're being bombarded with toxins all day long. And if we think the food here in the US, even the organic, is good, go to Mexico for a month. I mean, the food here is picked well before it's ripe. If you're buying from the grocery store in this time of year, guess what? We all probably buy from the grocery store. It's it takes weeks for things to get ripe here. It's gassed in a chamber on the way here. Yes, it's organic, but still they're spraying it with things to keep it ripe, put it on the shelf, make sure it stays like an apple, for example, right? Apples are encased, no matter organic or not, they're encased in a wax. And this is to keep it looking shiny and red so that we go buy it, other than we're not going to buy a brown, ugly apple and spend $2 on it, right? But we are going to buy the shiny red apple. And they know that. And so a lot of these things that our food is sprayed with, even the organic stuff, are oil-based. And so there's a pH on this machine that's 11.5. It's so alkaline that it actually emulsifies oil right off of your food.
Wash organic berries with it.
Yeah.
Kind of scary.
Everything with this, I wish I would have brought some to show you, but just let's say organic cherry tomatoes. You throw organic cherry tomatoes in your well water or your city water and you wash them, and then you throw them in this 11.5, it's a massive difference. There's not, think about oil and water. They don't mix, right? So if you're trying to get an oil-based residue off of your produce and you're washing it with just basic water, you might be getting bacteria off, from somebody who hand touch it, but you're not getting that oil off. You're actually consuming that, and that's caking the inside of our body. All of these things just cause inflammation. When we're talking about disease, we're talking about preventing disease, we're talking about mental acuity and brain health, because you can have a lot of money and be fit, but if you have no brain health, what's your quality of life? So again, all of these things matter for longevity, for vitality. We look at Japan, they're number one in longevity because they do all of these things. This is from Japan.
Household unit.
It's in many, many households in Japan. It started in hospitals. It's been around, this company has been around for 49 years. They're a completely private entity with zero debt. They make 100% of their products in one factory. And you might think, oh my gosh, that's scary because of the global pandemic. Well, they didn't falter at all. They actually had their best performing year last year, and we're sending out more machines than ever before because people are starting to wake up to this.